This
I'm starting
conference
the
will now
recording.
be recorded.
Okay, so it's 6:30. Sorry, hang on. So we have a quorum here, right, Smith, so we can move forward?
Yes, and there is no recording secretary today. I'm going to take the minutes quickly. She's going to summarize everything after watching the video tomorrow again. So I'll be doing both jobs today.
Okay, I'd like to call then the special meeting of the Architects Review Board, November 2nd, 2020. Call the meeting to order. We have a small agenda today, which we can jump right into. 6540 Main Street LLC. And I'm not sure who's taking the lead on that, but if whoever is, can go ahead and begin your presentation.
Okay, guys. Good evening, everybody. It's Robert Rosati. I'm an attorney here in Stratford. My office is at 3241 Main Street. I'm here tonight representing Robert and Martin Spriglio and their different entities that own 6540 Main Street, 100 Orono Place, 111 Leslie Street, 109 Charlotte Street, and 6520 Main Street. These properties, they're on the screen there. They're going to be eventually developed into in this CNC district, which we've created as 4 different buildings with allowable uses in the CNC zone. But tonight we're only here for the coffee shop, which is building A in the left-hand corner along Main Street. And it's basically on 6540 Main Street. It's the only building being developed at this stage of the project. Buildings B, C, and D, those are for future development. They will be CNC uses, but because they're for different stages or phases of the development, they're not going to be discussed and they're not under consideration here tonight. So we've submitted everything for you guys to consider that building A, the coffee shop, okay? It's going to be a 2,475 square foot drive-through sit-down establishment. Again, it's an allowable use in the CNC zone. It's going to fit all the CNC requirements. It will meet all the special case criteria. And we'll present all that when we go to zoning for our special case and site plan application process. The building dimensions are approximately 80 foot long by 28 foot wide. It's going to be 1 story, approximately 25.5 feet tall. In designing this building, we've considered the historical New England village character of Stratford. It's going to be compatible with the surroundings and this overall development. We've shown and factored in appropriate open space. Entrances and exits and parking are going to be safe and accessible. And there's also going to be pedestrian access and bike paths. I'd like to, at this point, Robert Kiernan, she's our project architect with the firm Phase Zero Design. And she's going to speak about the architectural style and character of the coffee shop, the building materials and colors, the roof and facade, the lighting, and some of the other features at this time. Okay, Robin?
She might be muted.
Yeah. Robin, somebody gotta let her know she's muted.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, there you are. Okay,
Okay,
start over.
sorry.
You're muted.
I'm
Okay.
on my phone and the computer, so sometimes they
Okay.
overlap. Thank you. So I'm Robin Kernan with Phase Zero Design. Before we dive into the drivers of this specific building, some considerations we took for the overall design, as we, we're only presenting phase one at this point, but we did have a comprehensive, or do have a comprehensive design for the entire development. Our original inspiration per Dr. Spriglio's request was that the design be based off of or derived from inspiration from the Merritt Parkway due to the direct vicinity, but also the architectural history and value. To say that, you can go up to slide 4.
Okay. In the other one, in the big drawing?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, in the longer presentation, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So when we were looking at the overall, oh, I'm sorry, yep, go back up. It's the black and white imagery. One more slide, please.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So our original design studies looked at the history of the Merritt Parkway with a number of different elements that we wanted to incorporate, being that there's such extraordinary history in such a close vicinity. So looking at just the vernacular, the style, specifically decorative metalwork, horizontality, and the blend of nature and modern. And you'll specifically see that in the first building, which we were utilizing the coffee shop's design criteria as a baseline, and they have a material palette options, but also wanting to tie that with our specific site that does utilize more of sloped roofs, more traditional aspects. So that's something you'll see very specific in the first building, is the blending of the natural from the site and the modern design. If you go down one more slide, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
1 second.
Okay. Always more challenging with the technology.
It's just, slow.
That's okay. Yeah, I know there's usually a delay too. If you go back, it's the slide that has some building precedents. So 2 up, 1 more, up, 1 more. Keep going. Sorry, I know there's a delay. 1 more. There we go. Thank you. This one. So these were some specific precedents we looked at before we started our design. Some of the pitched roofs, combinations of brick and lap siding, composite materials, along with the stacked stone. Again, blending modern but very natural materials. Lots of wood. We're not actually proposing to use real wood due to maintenance and durability. It most likely will be composite products that have a wood-like feel to them, but that will ultimately, last longer. You go down 1 more slide.
Yes. This one?
Whoops, I think it's 1 more up. Sorry, I know they're sliding fast. Yes, this one. So as much as we're emphasizing building materials, we also wanted to have strong emphasis on softscape and hardscape. These were, again, some precedent images that we looked at with different colors of hardscape, herringbone pattern inlays. And a lot of these materials will be shown when we get into the site-specific design as part of planning and zoning, but things we wanted to take into consideration for the initial design of the building. We have started to select some of our site elements, which you'll see in a few slides, specifically looking at aluminum benches, trash receptacles, and light fixtures that, again, are blending that modern and traditional looks. You go down 1 more slide. Something else and some feedback that we had gotten from our preliminary meeting many, many months ago was that we really wanted to incorporate placemaking into the overall design. Phase 1 has one specific area at outdoor seating directly outside of the coffee shop, but as we continue to progress into the design of the rest of this facility or rest of the development, there are some opportunities for placemaking. And an element that we will continually use in those placemaking areas to help for wayfinding and identification will be those wood-like elements. You see a lot of them here in our precedent images, particularly the one on the bottom rectangular image where you see this wood-style pergola over outdoor seating. So we're trying to mimic a similar environment for the outdoor seating at the coffee shop. Slide down another slide.
Okay,
I
I think I went
oh,
too fast.
yep. That's okay. Halfway there. There you go. So these are some of the building materials that we're looking at, essentially our kit of parts for the entire center. Some of these you will see, most of these you will see on the phase 1 coffee shop building, but we'll be incorporating wood timber framing elements, stacked stone, clapboard, sloped roofs with asphalt shingles. Those are more of the traditional elements, and then some of the more modern ones are the black and white brick, the two-tone, as well as composite trim, again for durability, and black metal accents such as canopies, awnings, and lighting, specifically gooseneck lighting, which ties into more of that New England vernacular. Can go down to the next slide, please. These are some of the preliminary site elements we had talked about. And we were working on selection for benches, very durable materials. Again, working with that horizontal and vertical slat design, kind of going back to the Merritt Parkway inspiration. A little more of a traditional light fixture that has an opportunity to add some graphic banners along what we would consider kind of our main entry point. This fixture that we're looking at does offer dual lights off of support arms to then help provide better site lighting. And we'll be presenting more of that at planning and zoning, but just to emphasize what we're doing just beyond the building footprint as well. Next slide, please. We've included some perspectives representing the building, but also the site, of equal importance. You'll see the pedestrian walkway running parallel to Main Street, and you'll see from another view in a few moments where the sidewalk then turns up and runs perpendicular to Main Street for pedestrian access that loops around to the coffee shop. You can start to see that outdoor seating area with the wood-like pergola structure out front of the building. And we've taken into great consideration for site elements, landscaping to create a buffer from Main Street into particularly the parking fields. Go to the next slide, please. This is a site section perspective that runs parallel to Main Street. You can see the phase 1 coffee shop on the left with the parking field in the center, again screened and buffered from landscaping, and then the main entry point into the development on the right side. Next slide, please. This 3D image is from that main entry point, so you can start to see some of the stacked stone elements there for some wayfinding and signage into the development. And then what you don't see on the far right side, you'll have a similar arc of the stacked stone to really highlight that entry point. And you can start to see the sidewalk on the far right side that will help with the pedestrian access. Next slide, please. This takes us back to the building footprint with the elevations. Again, this building in particular is blending that modern and natural design where we have the two-tone of the brick with a dark brick, black brick base, with the majority of the upper portion of the building being the lighter brick to contrast. There is a canopy over that front entry, which is the upper left elevation, that'll have integral lighting. And then we have some more modern elements as low slope awnings over the storefront. And then the shallow elevation that is planned south, represented in the southeast corner of the elevations, is the one that will be running parallel to Main Street, where you start to see that the wood pergola outdoor seating area. In this case, and you can't see it here, but kind of thinking back to the site plan, the drive-through runs from Plan North and then turns down and runs parallel to the left side of the building and then circles back out. A few more elements tying into the site-specific vernacular adjacent buildings. We have the sloped roofs with the asphalt shingles. decorative dormers, again, to work with that kind of more traditional design. And if you go to the last slide, you should see a closer perspective of the building. Thank you. Again, so this is kind of everything that I've talked about. You have the black iron metal canopy highlighting the entry point with your awnings to the left of that. We will have some landscaping there before the building footprint itself. Outdoor seating on the far left, which is facing Main Street. The trash collection will be concealed by the building from the street. That'll be on the far right side, kind of tucked around the corner. And that's pretty much where we are.
Shall I turn off the screen share?
Is it helpful to leave it on if people have questions, if we want to return to a specific slide?
Yeah, I think that's fine. So Jamie Miller, Chairman, thank you, Robin, for that presentation. So I think what we'd like to do, and I'll point out, I see John Zabel, who's here now. Would just like to point out he's recused himself because of prior relationships, but I think it's the civil engineer surveying company, so he will not be participating in this. But I think the best way to do this digitally is to kind of go around the room one by one and ask for board members' comments. I'm just going to kind of go in order here, and I see Steve first. So Steve, would you like to weigh in on your thoughts?
Yeah, Vice Chairman Steve Law here. Thank you, Robin, for putting this presentation together. I have a few comments, not in any specific order. I'll just run through them individually. The coffee shop, the east elevation of the coffee shop is fairly unarticulated, and it's unfortunate that we're trying to create more of a streetscape. I know it's not on the main street, but if there's any way to articulate that elevation a little more, I think that would help the overall aesthetic of the building. Let's see. So yeah, what our guidelines try to do is create more of a sense of place and a streetscape. So that's why I'm wondering if there's a way to put the drive-through on the north end, the short end of the building, and put it towards the inner part of the complex and not on the edges. A couple other items. I don't see any, is there the connection for the bike path to, there's a greenway bike path that goes up and across the bridge. Will there be a connection to that bike path? Just a couple other comments.
Yeah, do you want me to, I'm sorry, did you want me to respond, or do you want to wait until the end?
Jamie, do you have a preference?
Jamie Miller, Chair. So a couple things, Robin, and I think it's okay if you respond, if you have a comment on this, but just make sure for our note-taking purposes that each time you speak, you identify yourself so that when we go back, we know who's the one speaking. So I think it'd be fine if you responded, if you have something specific to respond about.
Okay, so this is Robin. If you want to continue with all your comments, I can try and provide some responses after, if that's helpful.
Yeah, okay. Vice Chairman Steve Law, I'll continue. A couple other comments I have. I'm not sure the parking counts. It seems like there is a lot of parking. I don't know if it's exceeding or excessive in any way, but maybe you can confirm that later. House plans too much. Is there any thought for a bus shelter out at the main street? It'd be nice to have connection points from this plaza to other destinations. I appreciate all your imagery that you put together to show us some of the context and some of the conceptual ideas, but it doesn't really resonate in the plans. But one other comment I had, Is there, so I love the idea of having the, a seating area with a covered trellis out the street area. But I'm just questioning the need for that drive-through that separates the coffee shop outdoor eating to the street line. Is there going to be a need for a transformer on the site when all these buildings get developed? That's about all I have right now.
Okay, Jamie Millward, Chair. Robin, why don't, if you're ready, you want to kind of weigh in, each commissioner at a time? Would that be, kind of make sense to you?
Robin Kernan, Phase Zero Design. Yeah, I think that would be helpful while the question is most present in everybody's mind, as opposed to jumping back. So Smitha, if you could go all the way back up to the site plan, I believe it's page 2.
Is
Thank
that
you.
good?
Yes, thank you. If you could zoom in just a little, specifically there is a black dashed outline around phase 1. It might help if we can look a little closer.
Yeah, trying to do that. So where did you want me to do it?
If you just scroll up just a little, we don't necessarily need to see the entire parking field in the middle, but.
Is this good?
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, that works. So I agree with your comments, Steve, regarding the, kind of the elevation on the far left side, which is in this case planned west. I agree we can add some decorative elements there, some more design elements. That is the drive-through side. I can discuss potential relocation with the civil engineers, but we did explore a lot of options. This was the best location in order to allow for queuing, to then not back up. We have, I believe, 11 car queue for this drive-through, which is the tenant's requirement. One of their also requirements, and I think it works well, is we wanted to have a bypass lane, which is this exit off of Leslie. It is a one-way street from basically the middle of the site, just north of the coffee area with their parking. So it is a one-way exit, so you either can queue into the drive-through for the coffee and then route back through and then exit out through Charlotte, or you can opt to do the bypass lane on the far left, being this is a one-way, and it's a little hard to see here just because we're not scrolled down all the way, but it is a right turn only out of Leslie. So all of that played into the placement of the drive-through, the orientation of the building. Connection to the bike path. We are, as part of phase. Oh, yes, go ahead.
All right, it's Steve Warner. Can I please, Steve Warner, Director of Property Management for Riders. Can I ask everyone to do us a favor, please, and mute your mics while Robin's talking? There's a lot of feedback coming from somebody's individual computer mic.
Great, thank you. Regarding the connection to the bike path, we did provide not necessarily bike lanes, but we do have pedestrian access as part of phase 1, and that's what this black dashed line represents. We did give you the holistic site so you can understand future phases. But we will be, as part of phase 1, just to the right of Charlotte Street, we will be including that sidewalk that then provides a crosswalk going left that continues on to provide direct pedestrian access to the coffee shop, but it will also continue on, provide access to the center parking field that then has a intermediate crosswalk across that. Eventually, all of the buildings will have crosswalk and sidewalk connections between them. And then if you could zoom out just a little, I'm sorry, I know it's very hard to finagle this. We, as part of a later phase, perfect. If you scroll up a little, thank you. As part of a later phase, the pedestrian walkway that runs parallel to Charlotte Street will then connect up to where we have a designated bike rack area with an outdoor kind of community placemaking park, for lack of better terms. So we will have that as part of the overall concept. Phase 1 doesn't specifically identify bike storage, but it does provide pedestrian access. Regarding the parking count, yes, for phase 1, it does feel like a lot of parking because that center parking field, that actually is going to support all of the later buildings. And we included this as phase 1, not because we need it for parking, but due to some of the site drainage and grading that will need to occur to first develop phase 1. That will go into much further detail for planning and zoning when we submit the grading and drainage drawings, but we needed to develop that parking field in order to basically create phase 1 for the coffee and that adjacent parking. It just happens that it just falls into it, even though it does feel like a lot of parking initially. To be honest, we hadn't discussed a bus shelter along Main Street. I think we would be very open to discussing that. I don't think we're opposed to it. I might, relay that to Steve Warner to see if he has any comments on it.
Sure,
but that's definitely something we can take into consideration.
Hi, Robin. I can comment on that. There is a bus stop at Riders Lane and Main Street, and I believe that that bus stop was scheduled through the town traffic study that was put in place with Sikorsky to have a shelter at that light. So which is only, if I had to guess, 1,000 feet down from the development. And also, Steve, to answer your question about continuation of pedestrian walkway, yes, the pedestrian walkway would continue down Main Street over the Riders property, existing Riders property, to connect to the Greenway.
It's Bob Rosati again. I think everyone needs to realize that the Spriglios own 88 Riders and 6580 Main Street, the properties to the left of this development, all the way to Riders. So whatever bike paths and pedestrian access and bus stops are on those properties, it's all going to continue. We've developed this CNC district in this village, and it's all the same owner, so it's going to be adjacent and it's going to continue. Thank
you. Robin Kernan with Phase 0 Design, continuing. We will take into consideration and revisit the drive-through elevation to then tie in more of that design imagery. Regarding the seating area on the that runs parallel to Main Street, again, going back to the orientation to allow for the best queuing for the drive-through, that is why we have it turn right to then exit through the parking field to then go back out Charlotte or loop back around with the one-way exit out of Leslie. Regarding
Steve, Robin, just let me interrupt. It's Bob Rosati again. Steve Law, the bottom line is we don't have a tenant if we don't situate the building and the drive-through this way. It's an established coffee shop tenant, and this is their requirement. So appreciate your concern and redesign comments, but it's a non-starter because we won't have a tenant. It's a requirement of the lease.
Robin Design with Phaser, Robin Kerner with Phaser Design, continuing. Regarding the transformer, we are in the process of developing the site utility plan. So I do anticipate we will have a transformer. I don't know the exact location at this point, but I anticipate that will be determined or identified for the planning and zoning submission.
Okay, Jamie
I
Millward.
think that,
Jamie Millward, Chair. So Robin, you're all set?
yes.
All right, so before I move on, so Jamie Millward, Chair again. Steve, are you satisfied with the responses there? Steve? All right, maybe Steve, you're muted. I'm not sure if you're hearing me or not.
I'll try to unmute everyone. 1 second. Steve, are you able to talk?
Okay, let's move on. Jamie Millward, Chairman. Let's move forward. We can always come back to Steve if he gets his voice back there. Shannon Hovan, comments, please.
Shannon Hovan, member. Robin, thank you for the presentation. First of all, the care given to understanding the context of the area and the inclusion of that and the design aesthetic is very much appreciated. It is often something that's overlooked. Unfortunately, the majority of my comments were taken by Vice Chairman Law, but I did want to just make one comment. And going through the points that we have developed here, I was wondering if you could maybe speak to site lighting. I was going to comment on the exterior elevations would have been a really nice spot to see the design incorporated, a lighting design incorporated on the building, as well as the parking area, which it appears based on your site plan that you just went over with us, the entirety of the parking is going to be included in this first phase. So I was wondering if you could just speak to any design approach to lighting the site and the building as a whole.
Robin Kerner with Phaser Design. Are you good?
Yeah, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Yes, so we are in the process of finalizing the lighting layout that will be included for the planning and zoning submission. We do plan to include two types. It's the same pole, but it has two specific lights where it's going to be a single headlight where it has the banners on the side that was shown on the site elements slide. And then for the larger parking areas to maximize lighting output, we will be doing a 2-fixture pole that has a support bracket on each side, which is, fortunately, there's some really nice decorative ones that then can tie back into the inspiration from the Merritt Parkway. So we do anticipate in the parking, designated areas, it will be a 2-light fixture pole, and then closer to the buildings themselves will be a single light fixture with decorative banners. Regarding the building lighting, and I apologize for not including it, and we can get that updated for planning and zoning. We do anticipate for the coffee shop, we will have on the Plan South and Plan West, which is the front, kind of more the front-facing, pedestrian-facing sides, we'll have decorative black gooseneck fixtures. And then on the drive-through side, as well as the Plan North side, which is the area where we have the refuge, will be black decorative sconces that will serve as wall packs, but much more design oriented fixtures as opposed to kind of an industrial wall pack. So we will get those updated for planning and zoning. Does that address your question?
Shannon Hovan, member, yes. And I have one final comment for you, Robin. The site perspective elevation that you showed, I know that the coffee shop is situated on a very main street, and I understand the landscape approach to want to buffer that from sound. But I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to what the design approach would be for the plantings on Main Street, because it looked like in the image, at least, it just based on what you were showing, that the building is pretty much completely blocked visually. And I know that we want to, you know, buffer from sound and such and the traffic going by, but as it's going to be the only building on that site for, I'm not sure how long, we want to visually be able to engage the street as people are coming by. I don't know if you had an approach to the planting for that side at this point. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Robin Kernan, Phaser Design. Yeah, so as we are finalizing the landscape layouts with the different types of plantings, trees, shrubs, ground cover, if you could actually go to that perspective later in the presentation. I think it's going to be probably this, either the last slide would work or the second or third slide from the end. That one works perfectly. If you scroll back up just a little, sorry. Perfect, thank you. So what we are proposing, and as we're finalizing the final or the site design plans, we will be updating our perspectives to correspond to specific tree types. Right now, these are, I don't say, a little bit of placeholders as we're finalizing the site design. We do propose 4 maple trees that are going to run along Main Street as part of this phase 1. We want, obviously, are going to be very conscientious not to block the building signage, as that's a crucial element for the tenant, but also the users. We plan to incorporate some native shrubs such as hydrangeas with ground cover of white coneflower, juniper, and black-eyed Susan along there. So some varying height, but we really only going to have 4 trees. So this perspective will be updated to represent those exact locations. We are going to have this little bit of this curved detail that kind of juts out past the sidewalk, this little undulation, just to kind of enhance the user experience as opposed to just a straight sidewalk, and an opportunity to put some benches there. So we will, again, the trees in the front are going to be red maples, but we also, through the rest of the site, will be incorporating kind of in the parking inlay, honey locust, and then along Charlotte Street, which is perpendicular to Main, is going to be black gum trees and then the main parking field beyond is going to be swamp white oak. I took notes today from the landscape call. So we are going to use a lot of native vegetation, native trees, but using it sparingly. Particularly, it's going to be a little more dense over the parking field and less so in front of the building.
Jamie Millward, Chair. Shannon, are you satisfied with that responses?
Shannon Hovian, member. Jamie, yes, I'm all set. Robin, thank you for your presentation.
Okay, Jamie Millward, Chair. Let's move on. Tom Sarkowitz, please, your comments.
Hi, Tom Sharkowitz, board member. I gotta say this was an exciting presentation. I think you guys had a lot of interesting ideas that I'd like to see implemented through your design. Although I know we're only focusing on the coffee shop, but you did show a lot of imagery of like a plaza-like design. And just from a quick look at your site plan now, it looks like 4 very separate buildings rather than a more plaza style site plan, which maybe since it's not getting developed yet, we're just not there yet. Another thing that I really liked was the sidewalks through the parking lot. I guess the parking lot is going to be a necessary evil with planning and zoning, but I did appreciate the care you took to incorporate sidewalks through the parking lots. However, in I guess the last slide, the rendering of the coffee shop, all the sidewalks look like just concrete, which I know in your presentation you had like a lot of pavers or sidewalk, or I mean brick sidewalks or some kind of mix of the two. And I think that would make the design a lot better if you could incorporate that. I really like the entrance sign referencing the James Farm Road bridge over the Merritt with the wings. I thought that's, you know, great placemaking, and that's the only Merritt Parkway bridge in that goes through Stratford. So for you to highlight it, I think was a really nice touch. And something I was thinking for the that really blank elevation on the coffee shop on the drive-through side, you referenced a lot of the metal work from the Merritt Parkway bridges, and maybe you could do like maybe 3 or 4 panels of metal work to reference that, break it up a bit. I think that would, you know, really solidify your design intent, which I think would be great. But those are all the comments that I had, Jamie.
Jamie Millward, Chair. So Robin, would you like to respond to Tom's thoughts?
Robin Kernan, Phaser Design. Yes, thank you. Thank you for the feedback. We very much appreciate it. In regards to the sidewalks, yes, some of the renderings you can start to see, particularly the rendering on the screen, does show a little bit of a color contrast for that undulation at Main Street. As part of the development with the landscape architect, we are preparing specific locations where we will have enhanced areas that will have like a soldier course perimeter or border with herringbone inlays. Specifically, that will be added, and we will update our graphic representation, but added at the outdoor seating underneath the pergola, as well as the raised table over the speed table that is kind of leading just to the right of that main parking field. So there will be select locations that add those enhanced sidewalk designs. I would say we're going to use them sparingly to kind of highlight specific moments or you know, areas that we want to highlight. We don't want to just use them everywhere, but we do. You will see that, and well, it will be represented for the planning and zoning submission. Also, I agree. I think it would be a great idea to add some of that iron work on the side of the coffee shop elevation as decorative elements, but it's an opportunity to tie back into that design inspiration. Thank you.
Okay, Tom is satisfied with the responses?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, Jamie Millward, Chairman, and I think I'm the last to go here. So again, thanks for the presentation. You know, seeing everything you're planning on doing was really kind of exciting. I was a little bummed that we weren't going to get to review the whole thing tonight. So a few things. I want to start with a very general comment about, and this is as much to you, Robin, who may or may not be doing future projects in this town, as it is to Attorney Rosati, who, you know, we've seen a couple times already, and we'll, you know, I'm assuming we'll continue to see him. And that's that, you know, we're a new board, and we are looking to be able to respond to things like, what are the light fixtures? What is the landscaping, as well as the material palette? And I think that, you know, I understand, and look, we're all in that business, and I understand that perhaps you haven't gotten that far and you're trying to get through the planning and, you know, getting ready to make a zoning presentation. But, you know, those are the kind of things, and you heard a lot of the comments talked about those kind of items. And it would be nice to be able to have something real that you've selected that, you know, that's what we're shooting for. So I think as this board moves forward and more projects are heard, I think getting all those materials in front of us would be extremely helpful. So that being said, a couple other more specific comments for me, and that's that, you know, when I heard you, I kind of was guessing that the coffee shop was tenant driven in many ways, because when I look at the overall material palette choices, and maybe I'll ask Robin if you could respond to this right off the bat. You know, the black and white brick you know, out of all the choices there, seemed, if I had to pick like, you know, which one doesn't kind of belong in the group, you know, I might have said, no, it's the black and white brick one that I'm not sure is in keeping with, you know, the kind of the look of the hotel and the other buildings. So is the material palette selection for that building, is that being driven by a tenant? And maybe you can answer that one for me before I even go on.
Robin Kernan, Phase Zero Design. Yes, it is materials that are part of the prospective tenant's material palette. We were using that as a starting point. There is potential to, you know, push that tenant a little bit. We potentially could replace the black brick at the base of the building with a stacked stone, which might better tie in with the other buildings that are under development and more of those natural materials. I understand that, again, as I said, we're trying to blend modern design as well as some traditional, more natural look. But yes, the brick was specifically driven from the tenant criteria. So we want to respect that, but we understand that it needs to work with the overall site and the vernacular of Stratford. Okay, that's kind of what I figured. So I understand, you know, it puts both you, developer, owner, all in difficult spots. But I think I'm going to echo a little about what Tom said, which was incorporating some metal work on that kind of unarticulated side, which I totally agree, you know, really needs to be looked at. But I feel like that entire envelope, you know, perhaps without getting rid of the brick itself, could be articulated with some of the other elements that I found so attractive, both in the imagery and then I'm flipping to the end of the page where you had kind of the wood timber framing, stone veneer, clapboard siding, all those things kind of didn't, other than the asphalt roof, maybe didn't kind of appear here in any substantive way. And perhaps all of those elevations might be able to kind of take on some of that look while still allowing the tenant and the look they're going for to still kind of come through. So, you know, I'm not even sure, you know, that can be a recommendation of ours, certainly. And I'm, you know, I'm just, unfortunately, I'm not sure it gives us an opportunity to ever, you know, see these things again, but we're hoping you could at least look at that. So, you know, that everything else. Oh, I just wanted to be clear about what is to be built right now. And so is it just the building and the parking directly in the plan, on the site plan to the right, and that over to Charlotte Street? Is that the extent of what will be done at this time? And maybe you could jump in and answer that one for me now too. Just, I wasn't quite clear. Robin Kernan, Phase Zero Design. Yes. So on the site plan, we do have which is page 2, we do incorporate or add a limit of work for phase 1, which is a black dash line. So it will be the coffee with drive-through, the parking directly to the right of that, and then the parking field to the plan north of that. So essentially anywhere that is populated with some landscaping, actual trees, it's that basically that middle rectangle. So it's parking directly adjacent to the coffee shop, but then also the parking field directly north of that.
Jamie Mower Chair. Okay, I see it because it's not on the package we have, but now I'm seeing the line. So you're going all the way up to what you call what used to be Orono Place. And so all that parking is happening at this time.
Correct.
Okay, so it's going to be, I understand better. I thought at first that it was just the area down in front by the building. So until the rest of this site gets developed, you're going to have huge amounts of parking there, and this little building. And so is it a require? I mean, there's no other way around. I understand you had some engineering input on, you know, getting drainage to work, but boy, so you're saying that entire, and it is, you know, Project North, I guess, but, you know, up above towards Orono Place, all of that has to be constructed at this time. There's no other way around that, because we're really going to be looking at a sea of parking lot probably not even utilized for however many years it might be till the rest of that site gets developed. Can you talk a little about that?
Robin Kernan, Phase Zero Design. Yes, from my understanding, the driver to include that as part of Phase 1 is really infrastructure driven, that we are going to have to disturb those parcels and bring them into Phase 1 as part of grading, drainage, infrastructure, to then support the coffee shop in that direct parking field there. Beyond
James
that, it's more of a civil engineering thing, so maybe Steve Warner can comment on that further.
Yes. Hi, James. Steve Warner for Riders Property Management. To answer your question, James, in addition to what Robin has mentioned regarding infrastructure, this Phase 1 black line dot around is a requirement from the user, from the tenant. There's additional parking from them, and we feel once this Phase 1 is finished, that the coffee shop will be a generator of additional business. It's a known entity that will create more business for the plaza, and we will have the parking capacity not only for the coffee shop but for additional users going forward. But this is a requirement from the coffee shop, the Phase 1 and the outline that you have, in addition to the infrastructure that Robin has said earlier.
Okay, Jamie Millward, Chairman. Okay, I understand that. I would deem it unfortunate, and I'm not quite sure why. I guess it doesn't matter. I guess I'm not quite following why they think they need all of that parking to be in place, but that's not my, I guess, not my purview. So, okay, I think that kind of covers my questions and comments. So, is there anyone else on either from the presenting side or from the commission who would have any further comments? Maybe just to raise your hand if you need to speak.
I'd like to just make some closing comments if everyone else is finished. Bob Rosati.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not sure who was speaking though.
I'm sorry, Robert Rosati. But I want to let everybody else speak before I wrap it up.
Steve Law, why don't you go first? Go ahead.
One other comment for Robin and the team. I believe there's a grade difference there between the building to the left of the coffee shop is a medical building, and that's at the Main Street level. But that Riders Landing Plaza in the back is quite a bit lower, if I'm correct. Is there some grade transitions at Orinoco Place when are those two plazas going to communicate to one another?
Yes, they will.
And is there some grading that has to happen to make that work?
Yes, Steve, there will be grading to make that work, correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Jamie Millward, Chair. I think I lost the shared screen, but I guess that's okay. And I'm not sure we still have Susmitha here or not, but Attorney Rosati, I think if we're all set, you'd like to kind of speak? Go ahead.
Yes.
Jamie, I'm sorry. I turned off the screen share. Did you want me to put it back up?
Jamie Millward, Chair. No, it's fine.
I think
Okay.
Unless it's applicant needs it again, but
Okay.
Attorney Rosati.
Yes, everyone, appreciate your time and comments and looking at this. I really like to thank Robin for doing such a fantastic job of walking everybody through it. So, guys, this is a gateway. This is a gateway opportunity for the town of Stratford. It's a project that the town of Stratford has not seen coming off the Parkway. Other surrounding towns have developed this way. We can't pass this opportunity to develop this this gateway development, first-class style that this team is presenting. So this is the first step, and we really appreciate all your comments and need your recommendations. So we have a bunch of other steps. We have to get before the Waterfront Commission. We have to get our special case site plan and CAM applications into to zoning. This is the first phase, and we put this first phase in place, and the rest of the tenants are going to come. This is this coffee shop is a known entity that's going to be an anchor. There's been a lot of hard work and determination with this team, and you're our first presentation. So we appreciate all your comments. But Stratford needs this. It's a crazy time. I think we would have had all 4 buildings and tenants in place before you tonight if it wasn't for COVID, but we've got the most important one. Again, thanks for tonight. We look forward to your recommendation so we can go to the next stage with zoning, so we can develop this, add to the tax records, and just really give the town something that's really needed. And again, it's a gateway development to the town of Stratford. So thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
Jamie Miller, Chair. All right, thank you, Attorney Rosati. And look, I think we're all in favor of the project as residents of this town, and we recognize what this could mean to the town. And so we appreciate what you guys have done here. So I think the next step for us as a board is now, and this is the most difficult part, I feel like, of doing this on a go-to meeting, is coming up with a recommendation and an approval, and it's not really an approval, but a recommendation to move forward, and then what things we want to point out as official kind of recommendations we'd like to look at. So this one's even more involved than the last one we looked at. So somebody needs to make a motion, I guess, for general to move forward, but then we're going to have to spell out. I'm trying to think of how to do this. Maybe each one of us can kind of put forth their, I've been taking some notes, but forth the most important things that they would like to see taken into account as the design team moves forward. Does that seem like a reasonable way to approach this? Maybe Steve, you want to weigh in on what you think of this?
Yeah, Vice Chairman Steve Law. Jamie, I appreciate your concern because it is difficult coming up with a kind of a direct approval. I think maybe we can start off with, I think we can make a favorable recommendation to the zoning and for the development team to move forward with a couple of, I don't know if they're conditions, but respective thoughts about enhancing the east elevation of that coffee shop, that blank facade, looking for further clarifications on the lighting, on the light fixture, and just taking into consideration our comments as best they can.
Jamie Miller, Chair, totally agree. It would be a favorable recommendation. I just want to get our, those comments, and you've articulated a couple of them. Shannon, Tom, you want to just add maybe a couple, if you have any other further specific comments you'd like to add to the kind of that laundry list of things that will go forward in our kind of recommendation package? Shannon, you want to go first?
Shannon Hogan, member. Vice Chairman Law covered my concern for the further articulation of the lighting in regards to the site, which we now understand is 2 full parking lots as well as the building itself, and just a more detailed planting in regards to the engagement of Main Street. Those are my 2 major comments. Thank you, Jamie.
Jamie Millward, Chair. Tom Sharkowitz.
Tom Sharkowitz, board member. In regards to that blank east elevation, some kind of design that further pushes forward the Merritt Parkway inspiration. And then I'd also like to see more of that accent sidewalks with either bricks or pavers or mix.
Thanks, Tom. Jamie Millward, Chair. I would just, I'd like to see maybe the recommendation include a little bit of integration of some of the material palettes that we're seeing that look to me so attractive on some of the other buildings. If somehow, and that means might be going back to your tenant. Certainly, I understand that they're going to have some requirements about material choices, but it would be nice to articulate the east side as well as maybe trying to introduce some of those materials. And I think you might end up with a really attractive building that they find is, you know, better for them while still utilizing the same materials. So I'd like to apply the kind of the articulation of all the facades to that. And then I would, because I just don't want to let it go, I guess, I get it, but I still wish I could have an understanding of why all that parking needs to be developed at this time. And maybe that doesn't need to be on this, but I'm not quite getting why this little coffee shop feels the need to have a sea of parking behind them. Other than that, I think last month, I think we kind of spelled all this out. And I think Susmitha, then you kind of wrote up a little recommendation letter that we kind of just had a chance to look at. But I think we've gotten kind of our thoughts. And so maybe we can use that approach again for this month, Susmitha?
Sure. Can everybody else mute their microphones, please? So there's no echo. Okay. So I wrote down a list. Please correct me if there's anything incorrect in this, and then you can just, after I read out this list, maybe Jamie, you can say that based on what Susmitha said just now, do you all agree to vote in favor or not, and then just take a vote. That way we have spelled out all the recommendations. So what I wrote is that ARB is offering a favorable recommendation to the Zoning Commission with some minor suggestions that the applicant should consider. Number one, entrance east elevation of enhance east elevation of coffee shop. Number two, looking for further clarification on light fixtures on site. Number three, take into consideration the comments received by the comments sent by ARB as best as they can. Number four, a more detailed planting plan is needed with regards to engagement on Main Street. Number five, east elevation design that pushes forward the Merritt Parkway inspiration must be promoted. Number six, more accenting in design and elements could be introduced. Correct me, Tom, if I'm wrong in this. Number seven, material palette and choices could vary and be reintroduced in the east elevation. In fact, articulation of all the facades with a variety of material palettes and choices should be promoted. Number eight, last but not least, the ARB would need further clarification on why more parking is needed than required and must be developed right now for the coffee shop. That's it.
Jamie Moore, Chairman. I thank you, Susmitha. I pretty much think that covered the things we just said. So I think we can move forward. I think the roll call vote is the best way to handle this. So I'm gonna call on you individually, and you can click on and vote, in favor or opposed. So all in favor of the recommendation letter as outlined by Susmitha. Shannon Hovan,
Shannon Hovan, member, favor. In favor.
Tom Sharkowitz,
Tom Sharkowitz, member. I'm in favor.
Steve Law,
Vice Chairman Steve Law, in favor.
Jamie Millward, chairman, also in favor. So the motion carries unanimously. And Attorney Rosati, Robin, the rest of the team, thank you again for the great project. For all we said, I don't think we were too tough, but it's a great project, and I don't live that far away. I'm looking forward to seeing this happen. The rest of the buildings too. So thank you again. Okay, so
Thank you.
our last piece of business, and you guys don't have to hang around for this part if you don't want to. We need to vote on the schedule of meetings for the year 2021.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for having the special meeting tonight, too. Good night, everybody.
Thank
Good night.
you.
Thank you,
Good
everyone.
night.
Thank you.
You all.
Thanks for your
Comments.
courtesy.
Okay, Jamie Millward chaired. So does anybody have any issue with our second Thursday of each month for our meetings at 6:30? Okay, so then I think we need to vote. I know we need to vote on this as well. So I'm going to roll call vote. John Zabel, you get to talk, John. Go ahead.
Hey, I'll make a motion to accept the proposed meeting calendar for next year. I guess the letter's dated November 15th, 2020, with meetings occurring on the second Thursday of every month.
Okay, Steve Law, in favor?
No, we need a second.
Yes.
I'm sorry, second, 0 second.
Steve Law, Vice Chairman, second motion.
Okay, so now, Steve, you can vote.
Aye, in favor.
Shannon,
Shannon Hovan, member, in favor.
Tom,
Tom Sharkowitz, member. In favor.
John,
John's Bell, member, in favor.
Jamie Millward, chairman, also in favor. And that
Thank
concludes
you.
our business for the evening. So if there is
And
a
I-
motion, excuse me, it's Susmitha.
Do all of you have your contracts renewed? I know that some of you were having an expiration date this year. I don't know if you had, could you send me the revised contract so I can note down the expiration date on my, in my database here?
John Zabel?
Just a point of clarification, I submitted my reapplication, I guess, but I haven't heard anything from the chief administrative officer at the town. So, or from, actually, no, it wouldn't be the chief administrative officer. It was the chief of staff, excuse me. That's who it was submitted to, Laura's
Mike
chief of
Downs.
staff. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
haven't heard anything from Mike.
So it's John and who else? And I'll follow up with that. Shannon as well? Mhm.
Yes, sorry, excuse me, that I believe it was the office of the mayor. I filled out the reapplication, sent it to them. I'll forward you the email, but they clarified that they received it, so I haven't heard anything.
Okay. And what about you, Tom?
I'm in the same boat with Shannon. I submitted a reapplication and they received it, but I haven't heard anything since.
Yeah, I think it might have to go before the council again. I don't know if they do the reappointments before the council or just the mayor signs off, but I will check with Mike Downs tomorrow and let you know.
So just so I'm clear, Joe, I'm not even sure. So you three guys were supposed to be, your first term was up, what, the end of this calendar year? Is that when you were
No, last year. It was John Zabel member. It was last year, I believe. So we're
wait,
already out. We're out of compliance right now. If someone wants to,
Yeah,
to fight it, but I'm sure we could get the mayor to sign off on it or something. But
well, I mean, Steve and I were only 1 year behind, so that must mean that I don't even know what the.
you're this year. You would be this year.
So Steve and I need to reapply then too, Susmitha.
Yeah, you guys have to. And I think when in terms of appointments, if there is no issue, and if nobody's taken out, I think you can continue. It's not out of compliance. But definitely you would need a re-execution just so you know what is your next expiration date of your contract. But I don't think you're out of compliance for appointments. You can continue as long as you're there.
John, you have a comment?
Yeah, John Zabel member. I just have a point of clarity. Well, two quick things. Again, you guys did a great job tonight. I'll just throw that out there. Sorry, I couldn't comment. That's one of the things I wanted to put forth is I would have had no problem working on this application. I just happened to see in the email chain, and this is, I think, something to think about. Maybe I overreacted. I'm just very, very cognizant of conflict of interest issues. But I happened to see in the email chain that I recognized the name of a civil engineer surveyor that I do quite a bit of work with. And if I had not seen that, I wouldn't have been reluctant to work on this application. So I'm wondering if that's something that we should be considering just to make sure we don't get into conflict issues, because these are larger project teams and we're just seeing a piece of this from the architectural side. And I know you, Jamie, have recused yourself on one occasion. It's just one of those slippery slopes with such large projects that you really never know who's on the other side of the curtain there.
So Jamie Miller, chair. So John, I didn't, that came up. You're recusing yourself just came up, and I just didn't get a chance to respond. I mean, I'll give my opinion. This is not obviously not fact or anything, and I did recuse myself once because, that team I worked side by side with all the time. I've worked with Dymar a couple times myself. I know them.
Sure.
And the problem and I appreciate your position, John, and I know you're trying to do the right thing, right? You don't want to be, somehow get this board in hot water, but, I feel like, at least for me, that if I recuse myself every time I knew someone who was part of the presentation team, I might as well not even be on the board because, I've been around here doing this for 30 something years. There's almost every engineer and architect in this area I've had some kind of contact relationship, worked with, whatever. And so I think, I think I don't want to downplay at all what we do, but we are an advisory board only. I think all those things do play a factor in whether or not we need to recuse ourselves. And look, and I chose to recuse myself, and I wasn't sure we needed to do that because I don't think we were going to get in any trouble in any way, but I did it. Just like you did, John, just as a safety factor, I guess. But anyone have any other thoughts on this topic?
Yes, when I did my AICP code of ethics, this is what the ethics prescribed. They said, like, if you don't have any active project with the other person, and you had like for 1 year or something, like from the time you vote on the application, you're not in contact with them on any other projects, then that should be okay. Like, for example, if John just knows him professionally, he doesn't have to recuse himself. If he's working on an active project with them, or if he's planning on working with them in the next 1 year or 6 months, then it makes sense to actually recuse himself.
All right, Jamie Miller, chair. Anyone else have a comment? Because I did want one other quick thing I wanted to bring up. If people have 2 more minutes, and that's
John Zabel member. Jamie, I agree with you. I have a license in the state of Connecticut to practice in the environmental field, and that's I mean, if you were to read that, it's one of those things. I mean, if you could be 6 degrees of separation, and it's it's difficult. But again, the only problem with something like this is now I'm out of this phase and I can't do phase 2. I see where you're going for sure. And I always err on the side of caution. That's just my nature. But I definitely appreciate the input, and I'll take that into consideration in the future, because again, I work for a huge company now, much bigger than my former company. So yeah, I agree with you. And then one other question I had quickly was, we had made some traction last time on revising our application. Where does that stand? I just wondered. That was back in August, I think, during our last meeting.
I think after that, I sent an example to Jamie and, Steve and others. And there was a comment from, I think, Steve or Jamie that said, do we really want to, actually revise our application to be more elaborate? So that was something that needed a bigger discussion than just by email with all the members being part of it, and that never took off afterwards. And today, because it's just a special meeting, we can't have any other agenda items other than, what the agenda has actually has been posted for. So we can't be discussing that, unfortunately, today, because it's not on the agenda and there's no other items category. If you would like to discuss on the application, we'll have to come back and reconvene as part of a regular meeting.
Jamie Miller, Chair. Steve, go ahead. You got your hand up there?
Yeah, Vice Chairman Steve Law. Yeah, I think we do need to put that on our agenda for a regular meeting, because I'm not sure where we left off. I know, Sumitha, you said you might have sent something, and I'm not sure what the what the resolution was. I don't know if we actually took any action on that. So I agree. I think we do need to put that back on the agenda, but I'm not sure the format. What are we going to just look at the guidelines the way they are and comment and elaborate on what's needed?
I think we can bring it up in the next month's agenda and then discuss it, just to be cautious, because this was advertised as a special commission meeting, so we can discuss further on that today. But I can put that as an agenda item for the next month's meeting. Or I haven't even canceled November 12th meeting yet. I don't know what you would like to do, whether you want to meet again or you want to, defer to December.
Jamie Miller, Chair. You didn't cancel November. I thought you did cancel November.
Not yet. No.
Well, Jamie Miller, Chair. I mean, I guess, does the other members feel that we want to, I feel like we need to, it's too bad we're not together, obviously.
Yeah.
I feel like one of us, or, just needs to, I wish I remembered all the things we talked about, just take the application and kind of make a pass at it, of editing it, and then we'll have something that we all can comment on. Otherwise, we're just looking at something and we're all going to be throwing out a bunch of different ideas. So, I'm not sure anyone's going to have that ready for November 12th. John?
John's a Bell member. I still think we need to have a brainstorming session. So I would be amenable to doing a meeting on the 12th of November, because I think from our past meetings, we've been doing this quite a few times now. I think we all have enough ideas that if we brainstorm and at least get that on paper, again, we can't talk about any of them right now, but I would vote for having a meeting on the 12th. So by next calendar year, hopefully COVID starts dying down a little bit. It sounds like we're going to be seeing more applications. I think we should get that hammered out while the calendar, before the calendar turns. So that would be my preference.
Okay.
So here's an idea. I'm sorry, Jamie, to interrupt. I just want to let everyone know that if for planning commission, we had an administrative item in the past, which did not require an evening meeting. It was still advertised for anybody who wants to, join the meeting and see what's going on. But we had a lunch meeting. So if you wanted to have a 1-hour lunch meeting, I can arrange that on sometime in December as a special meeting item. And we can just discuss that instead of having a late evening meeting.
Jamie Moore, Chair. I mean, frankly, the lunch meeting is probably harder for me than trying to make 6:30, honestly. So
Yeah.
I'd rather just do 6:30. And look, I'm fine with doing the 12th. I looked my quick. I'm available. I had set that aside all along anyway. So, unless there's Shannon, Tom, Steve, you guys all available
Yeah, I'm available.
Thursday?
Shannon Hovind, member. What was the date? The 12th?
Yeah, 12th at 6:30.
Yeah, I'm available. I was just gonna say before that, I think we left off with having a conversation because Steve wasn't present at that meeting, correct?
Yes.
So we were
And
just
then
gonna wait to do it again with him. And
I
I
also-
think the biggest thing we talked about was just that we don't mention our guidelines in our application. That was a big omission, but
We
yeah, I
can
think.
talk about it.
Oh, sorry.
I know. We have no right to talk about.
Bad, Shannon.
Well, you're making the secret here.
Okay, Jamie Moore, Chair. So Tom Sharkowitz, are you available Thursday, the 12th, 6:30?
Tom Sharkowitz, member, I'm available. Yep.
Okay, Jamie Moore, Chair. So let's plan on our meeting week from Thursday, the 12th, 6:30. This means if you can send a little go-to meeting invitation, and let's all go back and look at the application again, and be prepared to talk about this a little more and maybe make some change to that.
Okay.
Okay, Steve Law, sorry.
Question, is that application online somewhere?
Yes, it's on the Town of Stratford webpage on the right-hand sidebar. If you click for a download applications link, you'll
Okay.
find ARB's application also in that list of applications.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Jamie Miller, Chair. All right, so let's all look at that ahead of time as well. Okay, so I think we're not allowed to talk about anything else. So is there a motion to dismiss? John Zabel,
I'll make a motion.
second.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody. I'll see everybody Thursday.
Is there an election tomorrow?
Yeah.
Ah.
Just kidding.
Okay. See everybody.
Bye.
See you back.